Hey, what's up guys? It's Pete with MixBetterNow.com, and we are continuing in our mixing using the 80-20 rule series here. The 80-20 rule is also known as the Pareto principle, and for those of you just tuning in and joining us, what the 80-20 rule says is that in the majority of events in life, 80% of our end result comes from 20% of our input or 20% of our effort. When we relate that to mixing, what it means in mixing is that 80% of our end mix result comes from 20% of the mix moves that we do. So it's a pretty crazy concept. I know it almost doesn't make sense. It seems like the numbers are off, but if you want to even flip that around and think about it for a minute, it means that 80% of the things that we do while mixing only attribute for 20% of our end mix. So it's a pretty crazy number, but what does that mean when we're mixing? Essentially, what I take from that is that the most important mix moves that we do in the course of our mix is the broadest strokes possible, like treating our mix bus, treating our all buses, treating groups of tracks together as one instead of going through each track individually and spending, copious amounts of time on those. Now, I'm not alluding that we don't need to do that, but if it calls for it, we need to address it, of course. But I would just say overall, we're going to get the bulk of our sound and our tone in our mix from 20% of the moves that we do. So here we're continuing Mixing the Limit by Matt MacKelcan. As I showed you guys in the last video, we talked about mix bus processing, or I should say the last 3 videos. We talked about doing EQ on the mix bus, compression, harmonic saturation, tape saturation, limiting, overall sweetening, things like that. I'm going to play this again for you guys so you can just hear the original mix. I'm remixing this whole album for my client. I did not do the original mix, but so we've done mix bus processing up to this point, and I did a little bit of tweaking to the lead vocal. So I'm going to play it from the first verse, and I will toggle back and forth so you can hear what we got. Here we go.
Questions fired out of the cannon. You're hiding behind us somehow. I haven't got a chance to answer before my words turned around. It's getting hard to remember now. The more I sing, the less I know. You mutter as you walk away. That's what I thought you'd say. You can take my heart to the limit. It'll keep me coming back for more. But then you tell me.
All right. So as you can hear, everything's sounding pretty good so far. In my opinion, we're already competing with the original mix. But what I want to do here before we dig in and mix a little bit more is I just want to explain my template, my routing, and how we're going to use that to our advantage, how I use that to my advantage every time that I mix a session. So what we're going to look at here, what you're seeing is in my template, I have all of these things pre-instantiated, ready to go. Whenever I get a set of multi-tracks from a client, or if I'm doing some of my own work, all of these things are already set up, routed, color-coded, so I can drag the tracks in and I can just start gain staging and I can start working, throw the faders up, balance my mix, etc. Okay, so I just want to point out that if you guys like my workflow, if you're enjoying what you're seeing and you want to check it out more in depth, definitely sign up for my email list. There'll be a link in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. There'll also be one in the show notes below. But when you sign up for my email list, I will send you my free swag bag that has a bunch of my mix templates in them for various DAWs. I have mix templates for Pro Tools, for Logic, for Studio One, for Cubase, and those include third-party plugin versions as well as stock and free plugin versions of the mix templates. So if you guys don't have a bunch of third-party stuff, you can. I've already put the stock and the free plugins into the template, so you guys can just go ahead and work that way. I've also included my top 20 free plugin list with links to the downloads, so you guys can go ahead and check out all those free plugins as well. The swag bag also has stuff like free multi-track sessions that you can mix and use and practice on and use for your portfolios. Got free drum samples, all kinds of good stuff. So anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I do want to go ahead and show you how this overall session is laid out. So it starts. Everything eventually goes to our mix bus, right? Everything gets summed down to 2 tracks and goes out of the mix bus. So here in Studio One, I work in both Studio One and Pro Tools primarily. In Studio One, we have they just give you a built-in 2 bus, which is over here on the right-hand side. Now, when I work in Pro Tools, I like to set up 2 master faders. I will call one a submix. The reason I do that is I'll put all my processing on the submix, and I do that for 2 reasons. It's purely for automation purposes and for gain staging. So I've done the same thing here in Studio One. This track right here is obviously submix. This is all of my mix bus processing here, and as you can see, this all goes to the mix bus. So the mix bus is over here. The only thing I really have on this this fader, this channel, is I have a limiter here just to, a little bit more safety if I need it. And then what's cool about Studio One is they have a post section here. So in the post, I put all my metering. I use things like Isotope's Insight is fantastic. I use the Brainworks BX meter. The Klanghelm, the VU-MT Duo. This is a great little plugin. I believe this is like $8, and it's fantastic. If you guys don't have it, I would highly recommend going and buying it. Klanghelm makes some very affordable plugins, and they sound great. So what you do is you set your this number here, and what that means is that 0 on your VU meter is, for example, -18 RMS. So you could just tell, depending on where the VU meter is, you could tell how much volume you're using. Also have things like the this is the Blue Cat, this is the DP-MP, just a little bit more metering, and then I'll use the this is the Sample Magic AB. I can put a bunch of other reference tracks in here, and I could toggle back and forth to reference. So anyway, I'm gonna kind of work backwards to explain this. Top-down mixing is essentially working backwards. We start with the broadest point of entry, which is our mix bus, and then we go backwards. So what comes before my mix bus or my submix here is what I like to call my all buses. Now, got to give a big shout out to Dave Pensato, my man David Glenn. I know David Glenn got this from Dave Pensato, and he kind of tweaked it a little bit. And then, from watching those 2 guys, I've kind of tweaked it a little bit to fit my own needs. But everything in the session here comes to all drums, all percussion, low end, all music, all vocals, or all effects. So as you can, probably guess, all drums is literally all of the drums, all percussion. Low end is going to be all of my bass tracks, and sometimes my toms I will send to low end, especially if they're floor toms. All music is everything else. All vocals is vocals, and all effects will be all of my effects that I have set up here. Will go to the all effects track. That way for gain staging again, and for treating these entire groups. So if my drums needed a little bit of EQ or a little bit of compression, initially or later down the line, I can do it on this track. And then when it comes time to automate, I can literally grab one fader and I can move that up and down instead of having to take 10 drum tracks or 5, whatever it is. It's just a really easy way of working, and I like to make these mixes as manageable as possible. Whether they're 10 tracks or 100 tracks, it's all the same concept. So, okay, so if I just hit solo here, we're gonna hear drums.
You're hiding behind a smile.
And again, I could just hit this on the low end, and I'm gonna hear bass and all those kinds of things. And like I said, it's just very helpful because if I want to impact the entire group, I can do it in one place, and that's there. So let's go to the beginning. If we were in Pro Tools, I guess I would kind of show it as a trickle-down effect because very much like Andrew Sheps, I feel like audio flows downhill. But so what I do in the beginning here is I set up 2 reference tracks. So if I want to drag in any references, I will do that to ref A here and ref B. if I get a rough mix from a client, or if I get an alternate mix, a vocals up, a vocals down mix, I can drag them in here, and then I can very quickly toggle between that to listen, to kind of, if my client is insistent upon it sounding like something, I can reference it very quickly from that point, just like this.
Questions fired out of the cannon. You're hiding.
So with one click, I'm already listening to the rough mix, or in that case, that's the final mix of the original record. But it's just a very, very useful thing to have. Also, with using the sample magic at the end, I can load in like 10 tracks or something like that. And then I have my drums are all in red here. Now all my drums eventually go to this blue track right here. They eventually go to the drum level, and then this drum level goes to the all drums. The idea here is I'm sending, okay, so we have a kick in, kick out, snare top and bottom. We have quite a few toms in this track, so we have a rack and a floor tom, but then they went ahead and they overdubbed some other tom parts for the chorus. Here, I'll play you those.
Take my heart to the limit. It'll keep me coming back.
So you hear those toms. Now those were, like I said, they were overdubbed after the drums are tracked. So 2 spot mics and 2 room mics that handle the toms. Now, all the drums will go to respective buses. So all my kicks go to this kicks bus, snares to snares, toms to toms. I will send all my overhead and room mics and all cymbal mics to what I call an overhead room bus. Doesn't matter what you call it. It's just so that I know that all the tracks that are going there are either overhead mics or room mics. Again, so I can treat them as a group. And then I have a thing here called a bus called triggers. If I don't want to send, like, let's say I use a kick sample, or if I use a snare sample, and I don't want it to go to my drum bus where I'm doing things like EQing, compressing. A lot of these samples are already pre-EQ'd and pre-compressed. So if I don't want to pass them through the drum bus processing, I will send them to this trigger bus. It just depends. And then, of course, we have our whole drum kit right here. So I'm just doing a little bit on that. And then all the pink tracks are my parallel compression. So I have a kick crush, a snare crush, a drum crush. Now, here's where it gets important. So on the parallel stuff, like right now, I have a little bit of parallel compression on the overheads and on the room mics. So you can see the fader here on the drum crush. And I've done this, I've said this before in like my vocal parallel compression video and my other video on doing parallel drum compression, but I like to send my parallel compression to the dedicated bus that everything else is going to. So what some guys might do is take their parallel drum compression and they might send it to the all effects bus or the mix bus, but what I like to do is I like to send it to whatever we are compressing in parallel. So if we're doing drums, I will send it to my drum level. If we're parallel compressing vocals, I will send that to my vocal level. And the reason is simple, is that if I were to bring the fader down on the drum level, you would hear the compression wash in the background, and I don't want that to happen. So when if I ride my drum level here during automation time, you're not going to hear those things in the background. It's going to actually lower the parallel compression with the volume, okay? That's important. That's how I like to work, and that just benefits my workflow. So again, all the drums go to their respective buses here, and then all of these buses, as you can see, they go to drum kit. So kick, snares, toms, overheads, the rooms, they go to the drum kit, and then I send the drum kit over here to the drum level. So what's great about that is using the 80-20 rule, if I wanted to process on the drum level bus, I could do that. If I want to process on the drum bus, I can do that. And here I've done a little bit of processing on the drum bus, and the same goes for the kicks, snares, toms, all those things. We can treat the group And then if I need to go back and just tweak a little thing on the individual track, like if there's a certain frequency that's poking out, I can address that. Let's keep moving. So this track doesn't have very much percussion. This just has one tambourine. If there were, 8 shakers and stomps and claps and all that kind of stuff, they would all be here in brown. They would all get sent to this percussion bus, and then the percussion bus would go to the all percussion, all bus, as I like to call the all bus. So here you're going to see the all perc, and this is just the perc. In Studio One, all my buses are white, and my all buses are this blue color right here. So bass is light blue. Let's check that out. So what I'll do with my bass is I will always duplicate the DI track if I don't get a bass amp track, or vice versa. If I only get a bass amp track, I will duplicate it and try and clean one up a little bit, or treat them to sound differently. With a bass DI, I always like to try and get some kind of grit or distortion or saturation on a bass. I'm going to do a video on this, but for those of you who've done it, you know what I'm talking about. But when we use distortion on a bass and blend it with a clean bass sound, it really helps that bass to cut through. It won't sound distorted in the mix. You'll be able to hear it in solo, but when you're mixing, it will really help it to poke out and to kind of carve its own space out in the mix. Again, I send these 2 tracks to my bass bus, and then this goes to the low end like I showed you guys before. So I will do, if I want to treat them together, I'll do the processing on the bass bus, and if I want to treat them separately, I'll go ahead and do it here. But then I have the bass bus here for automation, or if I want to do some more compressing and some more EQ. Guitars, acoustics are in light green here. So they come to the acoustic guitar bus. As you can see in here, as I've said in the first video, I haven't done anything to any of these tracks yet. So those are just the raw acoustic sounds. So what I do is I just send them all to the acoustic guitars, and then the acoustic guitars go over to this blue guitar level bus fader, and that way I can control all of the guitars when it comes time to automate. And then this gets passed on to the all music bus. So like guitars, keys, synths, things like that will just about always go to the all music bus. Same thing with the electrics. They have their own bus. They go to the guitar level. Here, there's a few keys. It says Rhodes and piano. I don't actually think that they're Rhodes and pianos. I think they're like a synth. Let's listen. Even if they are, I'll still send them to the keys bus. So it's kind of like a distorted, phasey sounding Rhodes, and this should be a piano. Nope. It's another affected piano. Sounds pretty cool though. But like I said, those will go to the keys bus, which is right here, and only have one pad. So, you guys get the idea. And the last thing we have here in the session is we have some vocals. So, as I showed you before, I did a little bit of processing to the lead vocal. Let me get rid of that pad. We go to a chorus.
Take my heart to the limit. It'll keep me coming back for more.
So the only reason that I did a little bit of processing on this before I shot these videos is just because, a raw vocal can often sound a little off-putting. Just did a little bit of EQ here, scooping out some of the lows, low mids, getting rid of that. A little compression with an 1176.
Take my heart to the limit. It'll keep me coming back for more. But then you tell me your heart isn't it.
And I'm setting it to the RVox just because it's got a sound.
Take my heart to the limit. It'll keep me coming back for more. But then you tell me.
Doing a little EQ boosting after we cut on the API, giving it a little 1.5, a little bit of that mid-range presence, and then I'm just doing like a 2 dB boost on a 10K shelf. Love the API 550, and then at the end here, I'm just doing a little bit of de-essing.
Take my heart to the limit. It'll keep me coming back for more.
Maybe a lot of de-essing, but that's okay because I love the FabFilter Pro DS. Is awesome. And then we have a parallel compression setup here. So that's my Vocal Crush right here. I'm using an 1176. Let's see how much of this we're doing.
Take my heart to the limit.
Pretty much annihilating it. Medium attack-ish. For an 1176, they have obviously inherently fast attacks and attack and releases. Excuse me. I don't know why that should be on 12.
Take my heart to the limit. It'll keep me coming back for more.
So the parallel compression gets routed to the vocal level, as does with the drum parallel compression. And the other thing I always do with lead vocals here is I duplicate them as I do with a bass DI. So I haven't really done much to it, but you see it's a lead vocal double. I will send that to their own bus, their lead vocal bus. Now the reason that I do this is I will often like to treat each vocal differently. So for example, I might do a lot of heavy processing on one and keep the other one dry and blend the two. I might use one very specific sounding compressor on one and a different one on the other and blend the two again, almost like a Michael Brower-esque, type of Browerizing the sound. So, it all depends on the session. Every set of tracks you get to mix is different. But the important thing is to have these buses set up, like our vocal level, our lead vocal bus, so that we can treat the group of vocals. That is the most important, in my opinion, on vocals when it comes to background vocals, because lead vocal is kind of like a special thing. That's something you might want to spend a lot of time on. But when we're doing there's 8 background vocal tracks here, 4 harmonies and 4 BGVs. Sometimes you'll get 20 background vocal tracks, stacks and stacks of vocals, and it's not as important to get them as precise as the lead vocal. So the way that we save time, the way that we use the 80-20 rule to our advantage, is we send all of these background vocals, all of these harmony vocals to a bus, and then we'll treat the entire group or all the stacks on one bus. So I just kind of have some things set up on my buses in my template for when it comes time to do those. And then all of the vocals go to the all vocal bus, obviously, as we said before. And then we have our, we're back to the mix bus here. I don't know if I played the all effects bus for you guys before. Let's check it out.
Take my heart to the limit. It'll keep me coming back for more. But then you tell me your heart isn't in it. A different story than you saw before. I know you know the difference between the colors and the sound.
So you can hear the effect wash in the background, or you can hear the effects coming through that all effects bus. I route all of my effects. What am I using on the vocal? Let's see, a little reverb, a little delay.
Take my heart to the limit.
Yes, I'm using an Echoplex and then an LX480 for a little reverb. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You have a whole ton of effects here in your in your session. I don't use all of these. This is just my template. These are just there. I like to have everything set up so that when I drag the tracks in, it's go time, it's mix time. I don't like to waste time. I like to mix as fast as I can without rushing. So, if I want to, grab a slap, I have a slap set up right there. If I want, an eighth note, I have an eighth note, a 16th note, all different types of reverbs. Essentially, I like to set up specific effect sounds or effect devices. So I will have things like a plate, a hall, a spring, a room, but then I'll also have some pieces of hardware, emulations like, big fan of the Universal Audio the Lexicon, the 224, something like the RMS 16, an EMT 250. I'll have a Cooper time cube for some delays, for some short delays, things like that. And of course the omnipresent Echo Boy, right? What can't Echo Boy do? So all of these effects go, like I said, to the effects bus. And the beauty of the all buses here is that everything comes to these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to these 6 faders before it hits the submix or the mix bus, whatever you want to call it. So that is essentially my template. That's my routing. That is the layout. That is how everything kind of flows together, and how I will process this. In the next video, we're going to keep mixing. I just wanted to shoot this so you guys could understand how I work before we continue mixing this track. If you guys want to get your hands on this very template that I'm using here, sign up for the email list. I automatically send you my free swag bag. It's got all these templates in here for different DAWs. You also have, there's a free Matt MacKelcan track in there for you guys to mix, and a free Ryan hip hop track in there for you guys to mix as well. Drum samples, reverb, impulse responses, all kinds of cool stuff. So, all right, my name is Pete from mixbetternow.com. I appreciate you guys watching as always. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit like, and I will catch you guys next time. Hope you have a great day.